Dear church, let's talk about the meaning of life with Jonah Marlin. Hello and welcome to the Dear Church podcast. I'm your host, Chris McCurley. I've got a special guest today, my good friend, fellow member here at Walnut Street, Jonah Marlin. Jonah, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me. I'm real excited.
Absolutely. I'm excited too. Before we jump into the podcast, we have a special video that we want to play, and we'll get back into our discussion right after this.
What's it like to have Duchenne muscular dystrophy? Can you maybe tell us some examples?
Well, it's not as bad as you would think. Now, it is not like fun to have it, but over the years, since I've had it for almost all my life, I really don't remember a time without it, so it's not that bad for me because I don't remember a time without having it. So I've gotten used to it, and it's just a part of my life, and I don't really feel that different than anybody else. The only difference is that I can't participate in a lot of things that other people can do.
Can you give me the description of Duchenne muscular dystrophy? Like, what does it mean? As far as you understand, what does it mean scientifically? But then also, what does it feel like to have it?
Well, I don't know how to explain it scientifically because I'm not really a scientist, so I don't know.
Well, explain it as you understand it.
That
I don't think I'm ever going to understand it from a scientist, but
it's a disease that makes it where your muscles are weak and you can't walk. And it makes it hard for you to lift up things, and you can't really, you don't have strength really to open a door and pull down on the door.
I just feel like it's better to just embrace it instead of be down in the dumps. And so other people may disagree, but for me, I've learned to deal with it.
Jonah, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it once again. I wanted to introduce our podcast audience to you and get a feel for the person that I've come to know in the last 9 months here, and somebody that I greatly admire, that I greatly respect. And just wanted you to kind of tell your story and then relate that story to kind of how you are living this life that you have been given. And I think it's so inspirational to other people. So before we get too deep into things, tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, and maybe what it is that your diagnosis, and we'll go from there. How's that?
Yeah. Recently, I've just been struggling with finding a purpose, things to do. So I've recently started reaching out to different community clubs. Like I'm in a community choir locally here in Dixon, and the local Rotary Club, and I've gotten involved with my foundation that my dad started, Fight DMD. It's for Duchenne muscular dystrophy. That's the disease I've been diagnosed with since I was 5.
Okay. And you have a little brother who was
Yes,
diagnosed
at
also
2.
at the age of 2.
Yeah, me and my brother were diagnosed a week before Christmas in 2008.
Okay. And so your age now?
I'm 19.
19.
About to turn 20.
Okay. Yes. So this is something you've been dealing with for much of your life.
Yes, much of my life. Most DMD is a muscle wasting disease.
Okay.
And it affects all the muscles in my body.
Okay. So it's just your muscles atrophy over time, deteriorate.
Yeah, deteriorating. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So talk a little bit about dealing with that and how you've dealt with it, because to me, I just draw so much inspiration from how you've dealt with this. You talked about some of the things that you are getting involved in, and it just seems like to me you're trying to make the most of every moment that you have, and I just love that.
Yeah, because I'm realizing that I'm never gonna. Physically I can't work like everybody else, make money. So I figured God has given me that to spend all my time doing things that other people wouldn't normally be able to do.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you're involved in Rotary. You're involved in the community choir. You were heavily involved in bringing a group of Ukrainian refugees over here, and even to our congregation here at Walnut Street, where we got to meet and greet them. And I know you're active on social media as well. You know, find you on Twitter and Facebook. Talk a little bit about kind of your day-to-day routine. So what is day-to-day like for you now?
Well, mostly just get up in the mornings whenever mostly as late as I possibly can. And we most recently hired a nurse to help us out. Mm-hmm. So that's a big help. And I just try to look through social media, or just try to figure out my next project I would like to do.
Yeah.
And I watch the news every morning, so I like to stay up to date on everything that's going on.
Yeah. So when you get up in the morning, you're facing the day, you're looking at what it is that you're going to do for the day and everything. Is that the key for you, to just stay busy?
Yeah. I mean, that's my goal, to try to figure out my next project.
Yeah.
And right now I'm waiting for our annual golf tournament that my dad puts together at Greystone golf course, where I have it set for September 22nd. And so we are waiting for that, for me to start planning a 5K that we just started back in April. Mm-hmm. You were there.
I was. I did not run.
Yeah, but your wife did, and Libby did, and I really was happy to see you and everybody else show up and help me raise money for my first fundraiser that I put together.
And it was a great fundraiser, and it did well. So that was here in Dixon, where you had the 5K and to fight DMD. And I want our audience to know a little bit more about Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. And so this variety of muscular dystrophy, that you said it was a muscle wasting disease. You were diagnosed very early. You said 5, and so when you talk about limitations, things that you said physically you're not able to do, your mind's still very much intact. You do very, very well spoken. You did our Lord's Supper meditation a few weeks ago here and did a great job with that. Talk a little bit about your screen here, because you were showing me this. This is your latest appliance that you're using.
Yeah, it's a new Apple product. It's called eye gaze. It's called a Toby machine. Mm-hmm. And it was originally built for people that cannot speak. And so it has an app on here where you type out what you want to say and it speaks for you.
Okay.
And it works with your eyes. You don't have to touch it at all.
Yeah, that is fascinating. So you were showing me how you just look at it, and you look at a particular app, kind of like your phone. You look at a particular app and it just opens it, and then you can go from that. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that has been very, very useful.
Yeah, that's been a major tool for me to reach out to people. I'm always emailing people, trying to figure out what I can do.
Yeah. Yeah. You were telling me last night, I was asking you about your feeding tube. You said that has been very, like, a huge help, that has been something that's really been awesome for you and helpful to you.
I've been through more surgeries than I can count. we were racing at the beach like a few years ago on a trip with all our friends, and we weren't buckled up. So we were racing, me and my brother, and a girl was running on the back of my chair, and she accidentally hit my off switch.
Oh.
And that flung me out of my chair, and I broke my femurs, both femurs.
Oh.
And we were in Florida. So we had to drive to a ER, and then they offered to fly us back to Nashville. But instead we drove from Florida back to Dixon.
Wow.
With a broken hip.
Yeah.
And that was just so terrible riding down those roads. The roads were terrible, and I've been through a lot.
Yeah, you sure have. Talk about, because the video mentions it somewhat, but talk a little bit about how your faith has sustained you all along the way, and how, I think it would be maybe understandable that somebody, might blame God or turn away from God. And you have done the opposite. Talk about your faith and how that's helped you through this.
Yeah. In a way, my disease, even though it feels like it's limitations there, it feels like it's almost like a gift. Because it gives me the ability to, I don't have to do everything like all the other adults do, all the other people my age. And so I have more time to dedicate myself to the church.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's unbelievable perspective. And you say in the video that, basically there's two ways to handle this, to just, wallow and be depressed. And you've decided to take a different approach, which is to embrace it, right?
Yes, and that's something I've realized more recently.
Yeah.
Because I've realized that I need to do something with the time I have.
Yeah. Yeah.
And God has given me that.
Yeah. So you want to make the most of this opportunity.
Yes.
And you're certainly trying to do that. Yeah.
Trying.
Yeah. Well, I think you're doing a great job with it. Your mom is in the studio, and she would kill me if I had her come on camera. But I know she has been instrumental in, because we're doing this interview with you, but your brother's in the exact same situation, right? And he's
Yes.
not with us today. But Emery is how many years younger? 3?
He's I was born in 2004. He was born in 2006.
Okay.
So we're 2 years apart.
Yeah. So mom's got her hands full. You said you have a nurse that's helping now. And I know that your mom has been just amazing in her help with all of this. And your parents have obviously rallied around you and tried to do everything they can to help. And talk a little bit about that and how instrumental they've been in all this.
Yeah. My dad's been very helpful, or at least with the part with our disease. Like a week before our diagnosis, he was on a business trip, and we had a regularly scheduled checkup.
Yeah.
And it turned out that we were diagnosed with Duchenne. And my mom called him and told him, and he pulled over on the side of the interstate. And that's how he heard about our diagnosis.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
He couldn't even be here because it was a regularly scheduled checkup, nothing out of the ordinary, at least what you would expect.
Yeah. Were you having symptoms or anything that was, or was this totally and completely out of the blue?
I didn't start having symptoms till I was 8.
Okay.
But one of the major symptoms is you start to lose the ability to walk at 8.
Okay.
And so sometimes I can stand up, but sometimes your legs give out and you just fall to the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And that was always a struggle, especially in school.
Yeah.
Trying to keep up with everybody else and needing help to get off the floor.
Yeah.
That
Absolutely.
was a big struggle.
And, a lot of modifications have happened. we were out there talking before we came on air. The van that you ride around in, there's it's obviously been modified for you and your brother. What kind of modifications have been made at the house to accommodate?
Yeah, we had to make it accessible, so we were able to add ramps in the front, back, and garage of our house. And a very generous member of Walnut Street, his name, Bubba Gramlin.
Yeah.
You know him, and his co-worker Wes Simmons modified our shower to make it a roll-in shower, so it was completely accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So major modifications to our home.
Yeah, I can imagine that all of that you don't really think about when the diagnosis first hits, and I guess some of it is a process, right? But when you first hear this news, Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, what was the first thought? Do you remember that far back?
I mean, I honestly don't remember far enough back because we were both 5 and 2, so there wasn't a lot.
Hard to understand, right?
For me to understand, it was so difficult. It's a very horrible disease and it's fatal 100% of the time with no current cure.
Yeah.
And that's what we're trying to do with my dad's foundation. It affects 1 in 3,500 boys born each year with no ethnic or geographical boundaries.
Right. Yeah.
So when we received the news, it was the most overwhelming and unbelievable time.
Yeah.
Mostly for my parents.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. What so tell me about now, okay? In the moment, from here going forward, what is the approach? What is it that you're thinking, more things that you want to do? You said you want to make the most of this time. And we've titled this podcast The Meaning of Life. I think that you've given good perspective on the meaning of life. What is it you want to accomplish the time that you have?
I just want to help people.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned before, we raised money for a Ukrainian family here on Walnut Street, and they've been here since June. And so we become great friends with them.
Yeah.
And we help them raise money for their rent for 6 months until they could work. So that was my first time doing something that had nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
But I'm feeling encouraged to be more involved in the church, which up until now I haven't been very much.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like it's the time.
Yeah.
The right time.
I know that you're one of our other ministers, Chad Garrett, who's been on the podcast. I know you've talked to him quite a bit about how you can be more active and the things you can do, which, I mean, he eats that up, right? He loves when people come to him and want to do more. Like we said a while ago, you've done the Lord's Supper meditation, and you've done a lot of things with us, and you want to do more. And talk a little bit about like your prayer life. What's your prayer life like? Can you give us some insight into that?
Well, up until the last couple of years, I feel like I've been more interested in my faith.
Yeah.
Like to actually develop it.
Yeah.
And I don't pray very often, but I pray as much as I possibly can.
Yeah.
And for me, it's a struggle to know what to pray about. Yeah. Even for me, but just be thankful for the time I have.
Yeah.
The spare time I have in my life.
Yeah.
That's a big blessing.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of try to pray for everyone that I can. Now I know, which I have a huge support system. There's always someone there to help me.
Yeah.
And God is a big part of that.
Absolutely. The church has been a big part of that for you?
Yes. That we have so many great friends here on Walnut Street. It's amazing how many people are there to help.
Yeah.
Most people do not, I feel like, realize that or don't get that.
Yeah. It sounds like to me that when I hear you talk that, and I've said this before in a sermon, but you certainly illustrate it better than I could ever say, is that that when you serve or try to help others, it takes the focus off of us. Yeah, would that be accurate? That that's what you're trying to do is get the focus off of me and help somebody else, because you find great joy in that, obviously, but you find purpose in that as well, and it takes the focus off of yourself. Would that be accurate in saying that?
I feel like that's accurate. But a lot of people come up to me and really compliment me on everything that I've tried to do.
Yeah.
And I feel like I get more attention than I
it kind of backfired
deserve.
on you, huh?
But yes, it should shift the focus more on the many purposes God has for everybody.
Yeah.
There's no one thing
Right.
for you to do. That's
right. Talk a little bit about your relationship with Emery, your brother, and have y'all helped each other through this? Is this something that y'all talk about quite a bit? And
well, me and my brother are like complete opposites. He just he loves to be at home and he's just always relaxing.
Uh-huh.
So he just really seems to enjoy life.
Yeah.
And so he's not much of a talker like I am. I could talk for hours.
You're very much a social butterfly, aren't you?
Yes, and Emery's not as much like that, but that's also a gift.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah. Jonah, thank you so much for coming on today. This has been great. Tell our audience about how they can be involved in this fight against DMD.
Yeah, you can go to fightdmd.com and you can read more we have a great documentary video on there, mm-hmm. other than the one you've showed everybody, but you can go there, and we're having a golf tournament soon on September 22nd at Greystone Golf Course, and you can come see us there.
Yeah.
Help us raise money.
Absolutely. Yeah. You said which golf course?
Greystone Golf Course.
Greystone, here in Dixon. Yes.
Yes, here in Dixon, Tennessee.
Okay. Yeah. And I'm sure that you would be willing to answer any questions or comments that people might have. I mean, if you're tuning in and you have any sort of question or comment for Jonah or myself, you can email me at chris.mccurley@rippleoflight.com. If it's a question specifically for Jonah, we'll make sure that he gets it. Sure, you're willing to.
Yes, you can go to jonahdmd@icloud.com.
jonahdmd@icloud.com. So if you want to email Jonah directly, you can do that.
And if you want to talk to my dad, you can go to terry@ddtool.com.
Terry@ddtool. Okay. .com. Okay. So many ways to connect, and we'd love to hear from you. Maybe you're someone who is dealing with something similar, then we'd love to help you with that as well. And I know Jonah, who's got a servant's heart, would be glad to help in any way that he could. Jonah, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you for allowing me to come on.
Absolutely. And thank everyone for tuning in. Remember, you can catch the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts. Spread the news about it. And until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Sincerely, Chris.